5 Live Formula One.
Hello and welcome to the Circuit of the Americas, where we have just watched the sprint race. Sprint Saturday giving us a sprint shootout, leading into the sprint race and leading to a podium consisting of Max Verstappen on the top step, Lewis Hamilton on the second and Charles Leclerc on the third. There was a bit of racing action, which we are going to digest and analyse. It's Rosanna Tennant with you alongside Jolyon Palmer, former Formula One driver and lead commentator this weekend, and racing driver Alice Powell. Did we get excited about that, Jolyon? There was a little bit of action.
Well, yeah, there was a little bit. I hope it's more exciting tomorrow. It was, what was it, 9 seconds between the first and second, 9 seconds at the end between second and third. If there was one more lap, we might have had a battle for third, but that was a little bit dead as well from the start, when Norris lost so much time behind Sainz. So it wasn't the most exciting, really, but hey, there was a couple of scraps further back.
The way you called it, Jolyon, I loved it.
Jolyon made it exciting.
I bring
That's
the
what it
excitement.
was.
I was 11 out of 10 at the start. and the start was actually quite exciting. That was the one bit where Leclerc was forced almost onto the grass. Hamilton got close. I got excited then. And then it went downhill from there.
Absolutely. Well, Alice, you were alongside Jolyon in the commentary box.
Yeah, I fell asleep.
No! Managed to wake you from your slumber for the Chequered Flag podcast. Plenty of action at the start. There was a little bit of jostling for position. We saw moves being made off track, gaining an advantage. We had penalties. So there was quite a bit of that going on as well.
Yeah, I mean, for the first sort of 3 laps, I thought, here we go. You know, Lewis was tagging on and staying with Max. And then, of course, Max comes over the radio and says, I've lost the rears. And, yeah, I fell into that trap. I said that on commentary that, you know, how many times this year have we heard him come on the radio and say the car's awful? And yet he was still setting green sectors by the end of the race.
That's the equivalent of my tyres are gone, Bono, isn't it, for Max? Yeah. When there's someone just on his tail, he's like, the drivability is not good.
But didn't you love how GP, Max's engineer's like, I think it might have been the wind? So you think it's something fundamental, and then it's just like the conditions, maybe.
Oh, yeah. They're I mean,
I think
they
are
really
literally
troubled?
playing with us, aren't they? They are that good, they're playing with us.
But I think Max has just been saying after the sprint race in the press conference that perhaps there was a little bit of an unknown going in today, which maybe makes it more exciting, because he was alluding to the fact that it can be so boring when you turn on your TV. Quite funny coming from the guy that perhaps has been creating that situation. Lewis Hamilton saying, actually, I see it a different way. I'm having a bit of fun out there. I'm learning from the Red Bulls.
Okay, that's good. and Lewis did a great job today as well. He was able to stay within a second of Max, and that created a jeopardy for, 5 or 6 laps. And he actually was genuinely just half a second back, able to stay within DRS, not miles away from putting in a mad lunge if he wanted to, a few car lengths back, but never quite got close enough to send it. But I'm still a little bit torn about the sprint, because like we said in the preview, there's been some okay sprints recently. Qatar, there was tyres that were falling off on the softs, but they were really good at the start because the mediums didn't warm up. Then we had safety cars because the mediums didn't warm up and people spat it off. And it was entertaining, and Piastri won it through the entertainment. Then we had Spa, where again the weather really threw up the strategy. We had Austria, where it rained and there was pit stops in it as well. So artificially, we've had interesting sprints. This one today was a plain dry sprint. The tyres everyone was on the medium, which is kind of standard form. Normally, it's pretty tricky to get on the softs. Sainz was the exception, did a great drive to get them through. And I've enjoyed the one-lap fight between the Red Bull, the Mercedes, the McLaren and the Ferrari. 4 cars, all about a tenth apart for pole position. That was really cool. But now we've had the sprint. We've got Verstappen lining up 6th tomorrow. But I think we're all just thinking, he's going to win it. He'll be there in the first 15 laps because he's so much quicker.
Do you think, though? Because I don't think it was as easy to make a pass this afternoon as maybe you'd have thought.
Yeah, but he just seemed like, to stretch out in that short space of time, the amount of distance or time that he was able to do that. Yeah, what needs to happen is someone needs to cause a bit of carnage around 6th place.
Need banana skins, is that what you're saying, Alice?
That's what we need. A bit of Mario Kart. Other games are available, but which is possible. Look at Sainz last year at the start of the race. We
saw a touch for Sainz, didn't we, at the start of the race today with Oscar Piastri?
Yeah.
So it can get a little bit tangled.
Well, he was tipped around in the spin last year, wasn't he?
And Sainz started 6th. So, that's where Max will be tomorrow. Let's bring the jeopardy. Max is so good at keeping it clean as well. Somehow,
everyone jumps out the way for him, don't they? They almost don't want to get close to him, don't want to get near him. They go, "Whoa, it's Max." You know, we know he's going to be super quick, so go on. I'm not going to slow my race down and let you through.
And I just feel overall from this race, my enthusiasm is quelled slightly.
Well, don't say that,
because
for
we
goodness
left
sake.
we left qualifying yesterday. I was like, we are in for some razzmatazz of an Austin Sunday. And when you see, and let's bear in mind, it was nearly 10 seconds at the end of this one, over 9 seconds between Max and Lewis. Lewis, by the way, was 9 seconds clear of pole man for tomorrow, Charles Leclerc. That's 20 seconds that Max has built up over the guy that's on pole tomorrow. 19 laps in the race. Bearing in mind, Hamilton for the first 6 laps was within a second of Max.
We want people to tune in tomorrow, by the way.
I'm sorry, I'm killing
I
the
hope
vibe.
you've got a lot in your locker,
But Alice,
Jolien,
remember
for
the jeopardy
tomorrow.
over 6th place because Sainz had the touch with Piastri.
Yeah.
Anything can
Bring
happen.
it back to that.
I can't wait to see what you bring out in commentary.
I mean, this is a deeper discussion that I've brought in on the sprint, and we're sort of 3 years into the sprint now, and I'm still bringing it up. But
I like that. That's a real nice
I
adjective.
think, that just sums up the sprint, doesn't it?
You know what I mean. It wasn't a classic, but let's just say I hope it's better tomorrow.
Well, we will look ahead to the Grand Prix
What
proper.
can we look forward to tomorrow?
Well, we will do that a little bit later on. Do not get too excited and get ahead of yourselves. Let's hear from our sprint winner then, Max Verstappen, on the top step of the podium this afternoon here in Austin.
Hey Max, congratulations. How satisfying was it to get such a great day all round, really, after a slightly more difficult Friday?
Yeah, I mean, the pace has been always there. Just, of course, unfortunate with the track limits in the first qualifying. But today has been, pretty straightforward. I think the only thing was, lap 1, turn 1 to try and stay ahead. But after that, I think we just settled in nicely after a few laps. And at one point, I could just, look after my tyres to the end and have a bit of fun at the end of the race as well, trying to push it a bit more.
In terms of the learnings that you got when you were having fun out there and just getting to know the tyres, you obviously P6 tomorrow. Do you think you can fight back and get that win tomorrow?
I'm definitely going to try. I mean, it's 5 cars to pass, which is never straightforward. But with the pace I think we had today, hopefully with more fuel in the car tomorrow, it will be even better. We'll find out tomorrow. But for sure, this was a very positive day for us, and hopefully we can show something similar out there tomorrow.
Great stuff. Good luck tomorrow. Thanks.
So that was Max Verstappen, top step this afternoon. Going to have a little bit of work to do during the Grand Prix. And Lewis Hamilton, who finished P2 today, saying that he expects Max to be right there with them after a few laps of the Grand Prix. But I don't want to talk about the Grand Prix just yet. We're going to get to that.
But you're saying what I've said now. Even Max was asked, well, it's only 6th tomorrow, it's going to be hard. And he was like, well, but we've got good pace, so I'm not worried.
But they've had that all year. It's not like a news flash. The RB19 is a rapid rocket. Yeah. So Lewis Hamilton, obviously they got that upgrade this weekend. A tweak to the floor. He said it's one of the biggest upgrades they've brought. George Russell being a little bit more coy. They must be pretty happy with what it's delivered. Their tech director, James Allison, saying it was going to deliver a 1/10 of a second. But what do you take away from that sprint race? I know only 19 laps of testing, essentially, but does their race pace, do you think, therefore look improved from this improved floor?
I mean, yes. Yes.
Tentative there, Alice.
Potentially.
Tentative.
I mean, if there's one thing to take away from the sprint race is that Ferrari, and Charles actually said it, didn't he, after the Grand Prix, that Ferrari will be the only ones that will have data on the soft tyre, because of course Sainz ran the soft tyre and actually did a really good job of holding off George Russell. Okay, George had the penalty in the end, but he did a great job and actually was faster than Charles at the end of the race on the medium tyre. Whether Charles was just bringing it home, who knows?
Yeah, you thought he might have had an issue or something, didn't you?
Yeah, he made a mistake on that last lap. But I suppose Charles, in the interview after the race today, was kind of like, seemed pretty confident. I felt that he seemed
He said
pretty
he could
happy.
win.
Yeah.
For a guy that's finished 20 seconds off after 19 laps, well, maybe he's got something more up his sleeve.
We need his positivity.
Confidence.
Yeah.
Come to the podcast.
Cling on to those words.
Go hang out with Charles Leclerc tonight, Jolien.
Happily.
I think, get some enthusiasm for it. But I think, for me, that's the biggest positive for Mercedes is Hamilton's form, ditching Leclerc. Got him at the start, ran the outside. Leclerc, I liked his aggression with Verstappen as well. They were right together coming into the first corner. Hamilton took advantage, swept round the outside, got second. and then just drove away from Leclerc in those early laps, extended the gap all the way through. Leclerc was dropping into Norris. That might be the closer battle for Mercedes in terms of race pace is Norris and Hamilton tomorrow, because Leclerc was kind of bafflingly underwhelming, considering also the Ferrari race pace recently has been perfectly solid.
And also, Ferrari pretty good in a straight line, and that's where Mercedes were worrying, weren't they, coming into this weekend? They could maybe match them through the corners, but it was the straight line areas of the track that they were worried about. But Lewis managing to hold off Charles Leclerc. So let's hear from Lewis, finishing P2 today in the sprint and picking up 7 points, nibbling into Sergio Perez's lead in the standings. Of course, Lewis keen to take that P2 spot come the end of the season.
Hey Lewis, in that early phase of the race, great start into P2. You were within a second of Max as well. It looked like you might be able to give him a fight. So that must have been a pretty exciting position to be in, at least in that early phase.
Yeah. Oh no, I was happy that it was good for us to get up into second. I think the turn one was awesome, and then I was trying to lean on him, but I knew that he was finding it easy just to keep that gap around a second. I definitely didn't know whether he would pull away like he did, and but he just had so much rear end. He was just cruising. It was impressive to watch.
The pace relative, though, to everyone else looks pretty good in terms of race pace. That gives you good confidence tomorrow. It could be a good day and a podium's on the cards.
Yeah. Good learnings today in terms of balance. Got to make some tweaks for tomorrow in order to make the stints that we need to do. But yeah, I'm happy. As I said, we have made an improvement with the car. Still a long way to go. We need a lot more than what we brought. But the guys are working on it.
Great stuff. Best luck tomorrow. Thanks.
So that was Lewis Hamilton finishing P2 this afternoon in the sprint, and he will line up from P3 on the grid for tomorrow's Grand Prix behind Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc. So I'm sure he's thinking he could be quite racy during the Grand Prix.
I still think there's an opportunity for those guys. It's a really wide first corner. It invites a lunge. You can clearly make places. We've seen it today. We've seen it last year as well, and plenty of races in the past. There's the guy in second that can take the lead from the inside. And there's an opportunity for either Leclerc or Norris, or maybe even Hamilton, to hit the front and try and just open a gap. And let's say Hamilton or Norris get ahead of Leclerc at the start. If they can build 10 or 15 seconds before Verstappen comes through and Max can't come through as quickly as we think he might, then maybe we've got a hare and hounds to the end, and it'll be a bit like last year where Hamilton's trying to cling on. Maybe that's
not hare and tortoise.
Hare and hounds, fox and hounds, all the animals.
I wonder though whether, with the data gathered by Ferrari from using the soft tyre on one of their cars for these 19 laps, that maybe they just go to make sure that they are safe and they're in the lead by the end of the first lap, whether they'll just go, do you know what, we'll stick Charles on the soft, because then he'll get a better launch off the line.
Do you think that was strategic this afternoon from Ferrari, putting Carlos on that soft? I feel they were slightly forced into it. They were slightly spare on mediums, and they want to save those for the race tomorrow. So maybe, yes, okay, there was a benefit of learning about that soft, but maybe they were forced into it, Jolien?
The very nature of a strategy is that it's strategic.
Tautology at its greatest.
There will be some logic behind it for science. I think that they are a team that are just desperate to pick up a win or a headline when they can, and we saw it at Singapore, where they sacrificed Leclerc's race a little bit to help Sainz, dropped him back into the chasing pack behind, gave Sainz a little buffer. It helped him keep the lead at the safety car and helped him win the race in the end. And after yesterday's qualifying, they've got a guy on pole and they've got a guy starting in fourth place. So it's worth getting a bit more information in the sprint to try and help your pole sitter. And it's also the reverse of what happened in Singapore. So I'm sure Sainz wouldn't mind maybe doing a little bit of data gathering in a sprint. And yeah, like we said, he did a good job actually banking some points in that today.
And Charles saying, yes, plenty of data to analyse, but I'm sure all the other teams are going to be using that data as well and extrapolating it out, trying to work out whether, as you say, Alice, it is wise to start on that soft, because they can kind of, read what the others have done and see how it might apply to them.
Yeah, no, it definitely can. I think it is a bit crazy to think that they would start Charles on the soft tyre. Paddy, your wives are calling you.
Oh, it's part of the show. Okay, the show must go on. The show must go on.
Oh, I've been distracted. Where was I? I mean, it's crazy that I was just throwing it out there that maybe to cover themselves off, they'll start Charles on the soft tyre. But I think Norris looks too strong. I think he will get past early on.
I imagine a lot of them will be looking to the soft tyre now with the way that Sainz managed to get through 19 laps, no safety car. And you do get the grip off the line. And also Carlos showed us that. 6th, straight up to 4th.
And you need to pit, whereas today he needed to stay on the road, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. There's the pit stop in play, and there's a hard tyre if they want to do a long stint in the end. I think the power of the soft tyre off the line, I think that's going to be quite a lure for Leclerc to start on that one tomorrow.
And Carlos had that interaction with Oscar Piastri. They came together. So who knows, there might have been even more launch that he could have kind of got out of that start.
He'll be on the cleaner side of the grid as well.
So plenty of work and data to analyse this evening for Ferrari and all the teams. But it's starting off well the weekend, isn't it, for Charles Leclerc? Pole position for the Grand Prix. He got that under his belt on Friday and then P3 today. Let's hear how the Monegasque driver's feeling.
Joe, you gave it a great go into turn 1. Kind of when you look back on it, that was worth it, wasn't it, to do that, even if you ended up kind of maybe dropping back and losing the position?
Yeah, of course. I tried it. I cannot know about the whole situation behind me and who is on the right, who is on the left. So there was a gap. I was only looking in front. I tried to go for it. There wasn't much of a gap at the end, but it's part of racing. And at the end I lost the second place there to Lewis. And then it was extremely difficult to keep them.
What was the pace of the car like, and what kind of pointers does that give you for tomorrow when you're going to hopefully be battling the Mercedes?
We are struggling a little bit with the tyre degradation, so on that we need to look what to do for tomorrow, because at the moment we are struggling a little bit.
Okay, thank you very much. Good luck.
So that completes your podium from the sprint race this afternoon at the Circuit of the Americas. We're going to take a short break and then have a little look down the rest of the grid. Just off the podium for the sprint race was Lando Norris, who I have to say looked a little dejected when he was walking through Parc Ferme. I'm sure he'll be disappointed he wasn't up there. But he starts on the front row for the Grand Prix, so plenty of opportunities for him in the McLaren, Jolien. With, as I said, McLaren, now it's become sort of customary that they're right up there at the sharp end, hasn't it?
Yeah, he's disappointed with 4th place, which is a really positive sign. Obviously, because he's been on the podium so much recently, he's knocking on the door of that first win. And he'll be knocking on the door tomorrow as well. He'll be desperate to get the lead at the start. And I do just think that's the chance. He starts second. If he gets the lead, the McLaren race pace was stronger than the Ferrari race pace today. Same for the Mercedes. The way to try and win, if Verstappen isn't tipped into a spin or finds incident on the first lap, the way to win is to try and build a buffer at the start. I hope there's no safety car, because the Max's pace afterwards looks too strong. But that's the target for him tomorrow. If he gets out front, he's clearly got the pace to make something happen.
Yeah, I mean, if something does happen to Max...
I love all this ifs, buts, maybes.
Lando might finally get his first win, possibly.
Oh, and you can tell how much he wants it. I mean, it almost goes without saying, all these drivers are here to win, but for Lando, it feels like it's just passed him by, hasn't it? All these opportunities just slipping away and teammates getting there before him, and I'm sure he's absolutely up for it tomorrow.
Yeah, he's clearly had the better of Oscar Piastri as well this weekend, so I think he can sort of resettle himself with that, and I think he's actually had personally a strong weekend. But McLaren came here thinking that it might be a little bit harder for them. There's a few slow speed corners in the middle sector. Their car's very good in the high speed. Qatar's full of them. Some of the other circuits recently, Japan, full of high speed corners. They're absolutely flying there. There's plenty of high speed corners here as well, but there's more fiddly low speed. And that's holding them back a little bit. But hey, yeah, maybe tomorrow's his day. Maybe.
Yeah, and Oscar Piastri starting a little further back in P10, and that is where he finished this afternoon in the sprint as well. Behind Lando Norris in the sprint this afternoon was Sergio Perez. A bit of a difficult one for him as well, isn't it, at the moment? P9 for him on the grid tomorrow for the Grand Prix. And he needs to hang on to that P2 spot, because we know there is so much chatter in this place already. The battle between himself and Lewis Hamilton could go right down to the wire, and Christian Horner needs a 1-2 in this driver's standings.
He does. It'll be the first ever 1-2 for Red Bull when they've won the constructors and the drivers. So, they'll want that stat. But I tell you what, it's slipping away from Perez at the moment. We thought after the only practice session of this weekend that, actually, he's not too far away from Max, and then the gap's just got bigger and bigger and bigger. He seemed to have fairly decent pace in the race, but he's starting down in 9th, isn't he, tomorrow? So that's a lot of ground to try and gain, especially when Hamilton's starting up in 3rd.
And he's not actually been miles away from Max, but everyone else has been so close. That's the thing. Norris was 4th today on the sprint grid, 1/10 down on pole. So everyone's condensed in that pack, and so if Perez is sort of 3-4 tenths down, then it's leaving him in the tail end of the top 10. And you're right, his race pace was nowhere near Verstappen's today. He wasn't making any inroads on Norris ahead, but he was comparable with Lando, comparable with Lewis as well. But from 9th on the grid, he's got his work cut out, and he didn't have the pace to romp through like he's had in some of the earlier rounds as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a tricky afternoon for Sergio Perez. Behind him was Carlos Sainz, who we've already spoken about, managing that soft tyre pretty well, it has to be said. And then Pierre Gasly in the points for Alpine. He'll be pretty pumped with that, I think. George Russell, of course, with that penalty, slipping down behind Pierre. So he got the last point, which I'm sure will frustrate Alex Albon, who was so close. It was 3/10, wasn't it, that he was behind, and he could have maybe capitalised. And he's being pushed by the team over the radio. He's saying, I'm going as fast as I can. But George Russell, you surprised he didn't give the place back on track, Jolien, and try and then sort of make another move in a more legitimate way, of course?
I thought it was a really bad decision from George. At the time, when we called it straight away, it was an obvious penalty. Gasly called it straight away from watching behind as well. Come through turn 13. It's a sort of fiddle through 14 and get the breaking point for turn 15. Tight left-hander. And he came in from clearly behind Piastri, was way behind at the apex, just kept his foot in. The gap was never really there to make it through. It was obvious that the gap was going to close to the space on the outside. And he just kept his foot in and absolutely blatantly took the place off the track. And for someone that's, I would say, normally quite an intelligent driver, normally has his wits about him, he's quite aware of what's going on around him, and it was just a really odd decision from him, I thought.
I think maybe it was a bit desperation, possibly, that Lewis was there up the road in P2. Maybe he thought, we've all been there where we've made some silly decisions. That was certainly one of them. And then
yours mainly on
back.
track, mine probably off track. But
and then we'll look back and be like, oh yeah, why did I do that? So possibly we'll. Maybe it's that, but you can't stick up for him because that was a stupid error.
But also, his team did say that we thought you pushed off.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I found it Marcus Dudley is race engineer being like, we thought you got forced off. It's almost everyone corroborating the story.
That's a message straight up to race control, isn't it, the stewards? But you know what it's like, Alice, when you got the helmet on and you're living a moment live and you complete the pass and you're like, yeah, maybe I was pushed off, you know. You sort of convince yourself of something that didn't quite happen.
Yeah, we saw that with Hamilton, didn't we? In Qatar, he was like, I've just got taken out by my teammate, and it's like, no, it was definitely you. And then he's watched it and he's gone, yeah, actually. When you're in that moment, you see things differently sometimes.
Absolutely. They've got to react quickly as well, and we saw that. It was, broadcast live on the international feed, so the pit wall would see that. Everyone can see that. You've got to just get straight on the radio, give that back. Because Piastri was struggling at that time. After just a few corners, there was Gasly in the way as well. And then it's not really, it's a lot of hassle to give it back. So you've just got to, either the driver's got to know, and that's the ideal, and George should have known. But the team certainly
the team
didn't
have
help
the
him
onboard
out.
as well. They would have been watching his onboard live in the garage. So whoever's watching that onboard needs to say, come on, mate, watch a little bit closer.
Everyone just a bit revved up, maybe. You mentioned Oscar Piastri. He finished P10. Do we think he had damage? Do you think that was why he couldn't hold the race pace that Lando could?
Didn't see anything.
No, they said over the radio they didn't, but it was weird how he just kept on falling through the field. So
he stabilised, though, in the end in 10th. Was passed by Albon. And then,
which you don't expect.
Williams passing a McLaren. Oscar's not had a great weekend. Starts 10th tomorrow, made a mistake in qualifying. I wouldn't have expected him to fall back as much as he did, so maybe there was something there, but it was only a tiny touch, really, wheel to wheel. The front wing looked intact, so to me there was nothing obvious, but the pace was surprisingly poor.
Yeah, so Alex Albon just finishing up the road from Oscar Piastri, but unable to scrape into the points. Of course, points paid down to P8, but a great weekend for Alex Albon. I mean, he's been electric, and we only have to look to the very bottom of the grid, and we see his teammate down there. And I know it's a conversation and a narrative we keep on talking about, but it is amazing what Alex is doing with a Williams that Logan doesn't seem to be able to tame.
Yeah, I mean, he had that mistake in qualifying yesterday for the Sunday race, and he was clearly disappointed, and that wasn't the true pace that we saw in qualifying yesterday of the Williams. We saw that today in the sprint qualifying. But yeah, Logan, I mean, yeah, Williams, we said it, didn't we? I think Benny said it during the sprint quali that Williams seemed to try and, stick up for Logan, but there's only so much you can do. There's only so long that you can try and stick up for the driver, because, that pace gap, it's not really, but there's been times throughout this year where we've thought, it's been pretty close. Amvort was one of those, but then he stuck it in the wall. So
Jolien and I were strolling around the paddock earlier, and we saw a little conversation, didn't we, between James Vowles, the team principal, and one of the investors. You kind of wonder what's going on there, round the corner, out of sight. Not out of our sight, though, Jolien.
Well, it's the last seat on the... That's our keen eyes spotting these things in the paddock.
Eagle eyes us.
It's the last seat available for the 2024 grid. And, I mean, Sargent, as soon as the pressure's intensifying, he's really wilting, and he's not doing a lot right at the moment. Everything's going wrong. He's not quick. He's crashing.
And here you've got extra horsepower, haven't you? You've got all the crowd. It's your home race. That's meant to spur you on.
The grid in Miami as well. His home races so far have not been good. He's got 3 of them.
Did you have trouble at Silverstone, Jolien, when you were racing?
I qualified 11th, but I was
knocking on the door.
I didn't even start the race. My car broke. I had a hydraulic leak on the way to the grid.
The pressure got to the car.
So the answer is yes.
The pressure came out of the car. That was the exact problem with it.
I mean, some people say that like you hear Lewis say, the great home support. But actually, sometimes the home support can put pressure on you, especially when you've sort of got that pressure. You've got all these fans that, not all of them have come here to see Sargent, but he'll certainly have a lot of fans cheering him on here this weekend. And, he feels like he almost not necessarily needs to deliver for them, but in ways that he does. But at the moment, he needs to start delivering for his seat.
But Formula One is just pressure. Logan's young, he's a rookie. It's a big step up for him, coming from 4th in Formula 2. So it was thrown in quite at the deep end. Maybe another year of Formula 2.
I think actually the team sort of behind the scenes in Formula 2 wanted him to do another season and felt that he still had learning to do. So maybe he jumped in the deep end too quickly.
And it's very sink or swim. It's very difficult to get more time. You have to have a very sympathetic team boss, and James Vowles right now is ticking that box of sympathetic. I mean, they are very keen to keep him, but Formula One's pressure, and as the pressure's increasing, he needs to do it for the home crowd, but he's got to do something for himself as well.
Alex Albon was saying how it feels like Williams have a lot of home races around the world now with all their different partners, so maybe Logan feels the pressure at several races now to perform. So let's look outside the top 10. It was Esteban Ocon in the second Alpine P11 ahead of Daniel Ricciardo. Not a bad showing for him, but of course no points scored. Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin, they're in P12. Then Yuki Tsunoda, Nico Hülkenberg, Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu ahead of Kevin Magnussen and Logan Sargent, who we've just been discussing, and Lance Stroll retiring with brake troubles. That seems to have been something that has been a theme for him this weekend. Brake temperatures on Friday, now again on Saturday an issue. That's going to be something they really need to watch in tomorrow's Grand Prix, not just on Lance's car, I'm sure, also on Fernando's car.
Yeah, it's maybe just a test session for Aston Martin as well. Fernando's
big
been
upgrades
disillusioned
this weekend.
Yeah, they ain't working. Both out in Q1 yesterday, and they're having a really, really tough time. The decline of that team this year has been actually a little bit painful to see, because it was so fun seeing Fernando and Aston at the sharp end earlier in the year.
Yeah, a little bit disappointing. So we look ahead to the Grand Prix, the US Grand Prix, getting underway at 8 o'clock tomorrow evening. Hopefully you'll join us on BBC Radio 5 Live. From Jolien Palmer, Alice Powell and myself, Rosanna Tennant, it is goodbye. But I have to quickly ask you, you're going to go to the Queen concert tonight? They're playing here. I mean, they're pulling out all the stops.
All of them?
Not all, Alice. It'd be a little tricky to get that together, but interested in a bit of Queen?
Yeah, I love Queen. But whether I'll be going, I think I need to.
I'm a big Queen fan, but I'm also tired, so I'm going to go back and have a brisket.
Rosanna.
But no, I'm going to go. You know what I'm like at the moment. Can't eat enough. Bit of brisket, bit of barbecue.
After such an exciting day,
I need to cool the jets. So
we've got an even better day lined up tomorrow. Oh,
I knew you'd come good and sell it for us all.
I've come good.
That's your lead commentator and former Formula One driver, Jolien Palmer. So yes, it is goodbye from us from the Circuit of the Americas. Alice Powell, Rosanna Tennant. Oh, one more thing.
The show must go on.
Sing it.
hopefully we can.
I thought about it, and I'm going to
If
ignore
you
it.
had, I would have given you 10 out of 10 or 11 out of 10 as you gave yourself earlier on. Right, join us tomorrow. Lights go out at 8 o'clock, and we will be live on BBC Radio 5 Live. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.